Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. First of all, I'd like to say that yesterday I posted something on my BitChute, Rumble, and also my Subscribe Star channel and Odyssey and Library. So that's one of the more edgy things that you don't want to have on YouTube. That's over there for you to take a look at. Thank you very much. In case you didn't see that, thank you very much to the person who gave me 2 very kind donations. And I hope that you guys who might be joining me now because you like my BitChute predictions might possibly like some of my other astrology chat as well. So here goes. Now, this was inspired by a very good friend of mine who said to me today, can I speak to what's going on astrologically? So this, in a way, is a little bit of a recap, but I think it's important to look at it. I put that up because that matches the video I did, the first video in 2017 of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and I used that as my backdrop to discussing that because I discussed a lot about Agenda 21, etc. This was 3 years ago, before any of this we envisioned any of this happening. But I kind of knew with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, which happened in January 2020, something big was going to break, something had to give. So why I wanted to have a little chat about this is because I know it's quite heavy at the moment, particularly in the UK, fuel shortages, kind of food shortages as well, the ever more and more impressive encroachment of the passports, and the mandates and everything like that. It just feels quite heavy, especially going into winter. So we need a little inspiration. So let's see where I started off. Now, this was from the cover of The Economist Globalist Rothschild magazine for 2017, and they're the tarot cards, and I really liked this one, the Tower, because it had there nailed the 95 thesis and represented Martin Luther. Now, when I looked at the last time there was a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, it was at the time of Martin Luther's 95 thesis, the time of the Reformation, the time when everything sort of broke down. The old control structures of the Catholic Church in Europe broke down. There was a time of, Henry VIII also breaking away from the Catholic Church. Just everything started to move. And about 20 years prior to this all happening, there was the invention of the printing press, which was kind of intrinsic to this awakening. And similar to now, 20 years before Saturn-Pluto was when the internet really took off. And that kind of information explosion and the access to information and all these different people from around the world communicating is also essential to the awakening we see happening now, and the fact that so many people were already gearing up and knowing something was wrong. And conspiracy theorists, they call us, who cares? I mean, if the hat fits, I'll wear it. You better convince me being a conspiracy theorist is an insult before I'll take it as one. As far as I'm concerned, it's better any day than being a government bot, a sheeple, and a useful idiot, right? So anyway, similar to the Reformation, we now have the opportunity for a Reformation. Something had to give. So it's better how dark this is. It's also a very, very positive sign. Now, I did hear recently from a kind of insider in the globalists, not personally, right? I don't speak to anyone personally about these matters. I'm a nobody, but online. And he said that for the Illuminati / globalist elite / the cabal / the Babylonian mystery schools who've woven their little tentacles into everything, they were very worried that they'd lost control at the time of Martin Luther, because they had everything going their own way, because they were already embedded in the Catholic Church, right? So they were controlling everything through Rome and through Britain. But the Reformation threatened that all. It was like squeaky bum time for them, right? And I feel they're very worried right now. It's squeaky bum time for them. That's why they've got their foot on the accelerator. They're pushing so far. They are making mistakes. Just now they're going to reach their Waterloo moment, simply because they're snatching now. They're so edgy. They're so eager. They're so desperate. The media are getting more desperate. All of their tentacles are getting more desperate because they know that more and more they push, the more crazy they seem. And the more crazy they seem, the more all sorts of people are waking up. Especially now with these fuel shortages and people not having access to the NHS and their GPs anymore because of the shutdown, and people are wondering what's going on. Now, Pluto-Saturn. Pluto, destruction, but also rebirth. Saturn, it's all the institutes of state, government, the legal system, the NHS in the UK, the police, the economy and the financial system, all incredibly linked to Saturn, and it's all crumbling, right? Now, on one hand, the elites, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, they want it to crumble because they want to build back better. But if they bring it all crashing down, it's our opportunity to seize the initiative and build back better for the first time without them. So as dark as these times are, something had to give, because the terrible corruption and the lies have been going on for way too long, and we finally got our opportunity to change things. So let's just talk about destruction. Now, destruction of the legal system I want to mention, because right now there are a lot of cases being put through the courts. I think in Queensland today there was something coming up for the Supreme Court about the vaccine mandates. Now, what Biden's saying about fining companies up to $700,000 if they don't force this on people, and forcing workers to have it, and forcing federal employees, blah, blah, blah. All of this is unconstitutional, and it's going to be very important to see how the courts deal with it. And in this country, lots of cases going to court, how the court's going to deal with it. Now, we know the courts in Ireland, not interested. Gemma O'Doherty and John Waters have had no luck in their judicial reviews over the whole lockdown, no matter what they've done. So we will see, is the court system over? Because if the courts are going to begin to ignore all the constitutions and all the common law and all common sense and go against us in all the countries like US, Canada, Australia, South Africa, even the UK, then we know the court system is over. Hence a pillar of state out. Legacy media, that's already finished for most people, and I think even people who've gone along with the other narrative are seeing with this fuel crisis in the UK, it's all down to media manipulated hype, not a fuel crisis, right? So even other people are seeing media no good. Here in the UK, the NHS, well, the backlog is unbelievable. They're never going to catch up. GPs are kind of happy doing these Skype telephone appointments. They don't want to really go back to normal. A lot of people are suffering, can't get hold of a GP, can't get repeat prescriptions. It's almost like for many people now in the UK, there is no NHS. And of course, there's no alternative here because GPs are the NHS. You can't really see a private GP in the main. I mean, if at all, in some areas, right? So, it's very hard to get access to other services if you can't go through your GP, so you can't even get access to specialists who you're prepared to pay for. So you're very strung into that NHS in the UK. Hear from a friend who's in the medical industry that they've been told the NHS won't last another 2 years. So that's another key pillar of state out, right? The police, looking at Australia, are the police ever going to be trusted again? And it could be coming here. I talked more about that in my other vlog. The economy, well, whole industries are being wiped out now because of the green, the whole coal, gas, petroleum, gas boilers, old model cars. We having a total reorientation of the economy because of the green thing, and supply chains breaking down. The fact that we might be facing far less import export because of the restrictions, far less air travel, holidays, tourism, leisure, entertainment, hospitality, all being decimated. So that's another key thing, the economy. We wait to see what happens with the stock market, although I think they have an unlimited ability to kick the can down the road with the stock market. They'll pull the plug on that when they need to, otherwise they will be able to keep it going indefinitely. But I do think at some stage the money system is going to explode, so that's more Saturn-Pluto destruction. So everything will be changed. We aren't going back to normal, and in many ways that's a good thing. We just have to seize the initiative and make sure that we build a society back better, free from the influence of these nefarious tentacles of the Illuminati, the Jesuits, whatever you want to call these people, because they work through so many different organizations and foundations. But it boils down to the money, power, and that pretty much goes back to Rothschild. I mean, he owned half the wealth of the world back in just before the Titanic sank, right? Which was a key time, actually, because it was after that certain things happened in the financial sector. And I thought I'd note something I found out recently, that this guy, look, it sounds to me feasible, what he said. He said there's an artificial shortage of diamonds to make them so expensive. They're actually so plentiful that they should cost no more than a bunch of roses. So you see, just another example of how there are these manipulated shortages to keep wealth in the hands of very few. And as we know, I'm sure even people who've gone along with the narrative realize that there's been a massive power grade and a massive redistribution of money to the top, which is also kind of Pluto-Saturn in conjunction in Capricorn symbolic, isn't it? That those huge power grabs taking place. So what we have next year, however, is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces. I think it's March it happens. And there'll be an eclipse in Pisces at the same time. Not eclipse, a new moon. Now, this is the spiritual awakening, right? And this is why it's so important. We can't win this war in material terms. We can't beat them with technology. They've got all the technology. They've got all the secret science. They've got the experts. They control the money. They control everything. They can cut our lives off, can't they? But spiritually, we can win this, which is why it's so important to connect with something non-material. Because I think in a lot of ways, most of us are now going to have to move to a life where we are far less reliant on stuff. Having the clothes, the access to food, the holidays, the money, the comforts, maybe even heating. And that's why we're going to move to this non-material, more spiritual side. So I think spiritual existence. So I think David Icke says it really well. He says we have to reconnect with our greater awareness. We have to realize that we are universal, infinite consciousness in a body. We are simply a spirit and a soul that's indestructible, having a brief experience in this body as a human being in this time. And we have to reconnect with our infinite awareness instead of being focused on little I. And he said the whole woke culture is indicative of little I, because it's all about I'm a white, I'm middle class, I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm a trans, or I'm lesbian, or it makes people box themselves into narrower and narrower categories, all of which are based on material, on visual, on just the body, which is not what we are. We must focus on our spirit. So that's how David Icke suggests that we reconnect with our power, is by getting rid of the labels and getting rid of all this entrapment of the body, right? And when we seize that power, they are not able to control us. While we buy into all this woke, oh, I am this, and therefore I can't do that, and this person's that, therefore I'm against them, the more we fall into their trap of divide and rule, and the more we squander our power. And for you guys who are Christians, because I believe that you can pick and choose from different philosophies and religions and incorporate them all into an understanding. You can have a belief in that Jesus is your Savior, that Jesus is King, that you are reborn into eternal life and forgiven of your sins by belief in Jesus. And all of these, that's why they're communists, which these people are. They are. The Bolshevik Revolution is happening again now, Mark II. These people are atheists, or even Satanists as well, but they are atheists because they hate the fact that we should believe in something. They want us to believe in them. They want us to worship them. They want us to think they are all powerful. But when you have a strong belief in the eternal, in Jesus, in God, in Allah, then you are connecting with something that's beyond them, and you're less connected to the material. So spirituality is key to winning this. That's why the great spiritual awakening, it's happening now, but it's going to be exploded next year in March because of Jupiter, Neptune, and that's really, really exciting. Just thought we'd mention now, Jay Dyer does a show once a week on InfoWars, and he analyzes all the philosophers and their writing. So he's looking at H.G. Wells, Jonas Salk, Jacques Atelier, Bertrand Russell, the Brave New World people, I forgot his name, Orwell, Huxley, and he looks at many of these authors, philosophers, writers, whether they wrote fiction or philosophy. They were all very, very connected to the elite. And he explains that their writings have been depicting this moment all along. They are all Malthusian in that they believe in population reduction. They all have a God complex. They all want to control people. They all buy into that whole Brave New World stroke 1984 kind of thinking. And they are all transhumanists. Now, transhumanism has been around longer than you think. Before that technology was apparently even there. They're all transhumanists. So he was talking about a very interesting, in his last show, I will link to it, he was talking about an article by a guy called Bill Joy, who was a top Silicon Valley guy. He wrote this article in the year 2000. It was in Wired magazine, and it was called Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And it talks a lot about transhumanism. It talked about 2030 being a pivotal year for the Great Reset, but 2050 is even more important year when he said we would achieve transhumanism. So this Bill Joy was rather uncomfortable about what he was learning, but the more he hobnobbed with the Ray Kurzweils and everyone else in Silicon Valley, all the tech elite, the more he was beginning to see that transhumanism and this belief that there would be a controlling elite that would become like Greek gods, supersede humans, and the rest of us would be dumbed down to almost what he calls pets. he all like dogs and cats or like farmyard animals. And the more you realize they all thought this way, and that you actually weren't going to go very far in Silicon Valley unless you did think that way. We're also talking DARPA and all that. He explains it very well in his analysis of this Bill Joy, Jay Dyer at least, explains very well the analysis Bill Joy did in this piece for Wired. It's quite a long essay. I haven't got through it yet. I'd like to summarize it for you. But he said this idea of the super elite transcending us is very much in their thinking. It's undeniable. Transhumanism is happening. And a lot of what's going on now is getting people ready for it. But he said they're also all Malthusians, so they totally buy into needing to be a dramatic population reduction as well, with the people that are left just becoming sort of biological robots, but increasingly becoming synthetic robots. He talks about one option, like the softer option, would be where people are happy in a way, but incredibly controlled, almost like a dog would be, where you've got a dulled down level of aspiration, but you're kind of happy because you're watching your porn and you're eating your hamburgers and you're vegging out and you're doing basic stuff. So you're kind of happy, but you're incredibly controlled, so you do their bidding. That was what he called the softer option. And then there was the harder option, where people had just gotten rid of and put in slave camps, or totally taken over by synthetic biology, totally transformed into a genetically modified being. He goes on to say that genetically modified food was never about food. It was about experimenting to the point where they could turn the human body into something synthetic, something that could become literally an antenna, like your radio, a receiver for information that would be pumped out via 5G, 6G, whatever, and all this information being pumped into you now as an antenna with your genetically modified body. You would simply become a node or a platform, no longer a thinking person, and most importantly, no longer having free will. So Bill Joy kind of expands this in this particular article, but be in no mistake, this is a transhumanist agenda. That's why everyone needs to be alert to it. And that's why we need a spiritual awakening, because once the transhuman agenda rolls out and the body is spiritually modified, genetically modified, we lose the spiritual element. We lose the ability to transcend. We become basically little I with no possibility of out. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that and feel it went rather well. Thank you again. I will post this on all my other channels so you guys don't miss it. Thank you for all your support. Chat to you soon.